Hello, Sunshine Fam. It's me, Chloe. I have a lot to talk to you about today, and it's not a pleasant story, but it kind of ends in a good way, I guess. Sort of. The last time that I made a recording, I believe it was another Who Am I video, or one of the last ones I did was a Who Am I video, which was finishing up what information I had on my paternal side. Well, a lot has happened since then, and I have been debating about just deleting that whole series. I don't even know where to start. I have been contemplating for years about making this video, and I know I've hinted at what I'm going to be talking about in here to you, but I haven't given you details. Now, I'm not going to go into graphic details in this video, but it's time that I break my silence. I have finally broken all the chains that have held me down for years. This story starts in this house. That's the house that I grew up in. Doesn't look like that anymore. But my life started out pretty normal, just like everybody else's does. But when I was 7, my spirit was killed. And from that moment on, I ended up with depression. And I was scared. You know what? I need to stop being scared and just come right out with it. I'm at the point in my life now where I don't care what other people think of me, especially those that claim to be closest to me, which they really aren't. They haven't been for many, many years. People I grew up with. I don't know yet. I may, by the end of this video, name the abuser. But from the ages of 7 to 16, I was sexually abused. Now, this isn't my sad Me Too pity party. It's just me getting this out. I don't want sympathy from any of you. I don't want applause from any of you. I'm just putting this out to share my story, maybe empower some of you that have gone through similar situations that I've been through. And hopefully get you out of the situation that you may have been in, may are keeping yourself in, or still are going through. What this man did to me at the age of 7, starting at the age of 7, was a roadmap for the rest of my life until last Saturday. Not this past Saturday, but the week before. Not only was this man sexually abusive to me, I will say rape was not involved, just molestation. And what I'm telling you is just my story. I'm not going to name anybody else in this story. It's just from my point of view. Kind of like Michelle Knight when she told her story from, for those of you that don't know who Michelle Knight is, she was the first person that was kidnapped by Ariel Castro in the Cleveland House of Horrors. And she told her story in a movie. I think it was called Cleveland Abduction or something like that. It was on YouTube. I had purchased it, but now I can't find it anymore, so I'm thinking they took it down. But that story was basically told from her perspective, and the only time she included Amanda Berry and Gina DeJesus was when she shared experiences with those two in the house. But most of the story was told just from her perspective. That's what I'm going to do. I'm also going to be using quotes from movies in this video. So for many years, I felt like this man was tying me down to the ground with a chain and not letting me be free. And I finally broke those chains just over a week ago, once and for all. Now, the reason I moved to Amarillo was to get away from all the memories that are being held here in the Twin Cities for me. And it worked. I was actually going to make it out to San Diego. I was going to move to San Diego. But after being with my cousin for like a month and a half, I realized I was becoming her Dr. Phil. And that's not what I went there to do. It was just a stopover on my way out to San Diego. And she uses that as an opportunity to unload her life to me. And I was already dealing with enough of my own problems that I didn't want to deal with hers. I even talked to her sister about it, and her sister was no help. Her sister's like, well, that's just the way she's always been, and good luck. I'm like, gee, thanks. You're closer to her than I am. But anyway, when I was 16, I was not the whistleblower. Somebody else was. But it became apparent to this man's wife of what was going on. Now, she had no clue because he hid it very well. And just like all abusers, I was told a number of times, if you say anything to anybody about what we do, you are going to be in big trouble. So I kept my mouth shut, even from friends. Even my closest friends didn't know. Not until I was 16. And when I told one of my friends in high school, after it came out publicly, this girl said, you should have him arrested. And I surprised even myself, because at that point I was starting to become upset that I allowed myself to be used by him. And I said, I can't do that because he's related to me. I defended that man. I'm not going to defend him anymore. So the abuse pretty much stopped at my age of 16. But then when I was 19 and pregnant with Clary, still living with my parents, this man abused me one more time. So I guess you could say that I suffered the abuse for 12 years, although there was a 3-year gap. And I've lived with the guilt of not speaking out when I was 9. And I still live with that guilt. I could have stopped it, but I didn't. Now, as with many cases of abuse, especially sexual abuse, sometimes the abused become abusers. And I am not proud of this, but I did end up abusing 2 other people. Not to the degree that I was abused. Well, one of them, yeah, kind of. But when I realized with the second person, after this person ran out, it scared me that I felt power over that person. And it was then that I decided I'm never doing that again. I had the feeling of wanting to abuse my daughter when she was a baby, when I was changing her. And that power was overwhelming. But I sit before you here to say I never laid a finger maliciously on my daughter, ever. She was on the changing table, and I was changing her diaper, and I was home by myself, with her, and I had to force myself to keep my hands at my side until that feeling left me. So I never touched her in a malicious way, ever. So I stopped myself at that point because I realized I don't want to be that person. I didn't want to hurt her, even though she would not remember it. She would not know that there was anything wrong because she was just a baby. But I didn't want to be that person because I knew what it felt like. So, going forward, after the age of 19, I got married very young. Got pregnant before I got married, but I got engaged before I got pregnant. And I got married. One of the main reasons I got married was to get away from the abuser. Not a good reason to get married, I know. I don't think I was ever really in love with my first husband. I loved him, but more of like a friendship kind of love. He kind of saved me. He took me away from all that. And yes, he knew about the abuse. I did tell him. I've told a few people throughout the years, and every time I tell my story, I always feel a little bit guilty because of that abuser saying, his voice keeps going through my head, don't tell anybody or you're going to be in big trouble. Well, I'm a grown-ass woman. So now I'm telling a lot of people. Do I feel guilty? Just a very smidgen, but for the most part, no, I don't. So this kind of leads me up to, let me go into my marriages. My first marriage was very verbally abusive. Now keep in mind, my sexual abuser was also very verbally abusive. He put me down a lot. Told me I was no good. I can't remember a time when I was growing up that this person ever said he was proud of me. Never. Not to say that it didn't happen, I just don't recall it. So I lived my life thinking I was ugly, I was stupid, I was teased in high school. Nowadays they call it bullying, but it wasn't as bad as bullying is today in schools. You know, nobody ever told me, go kill yourself. Nobody ever physically, like, beat me up or anything in school, like the kids do nowadays. But, you know, they would call me Four Eyes. They would, you know, I had braces, so they'd call me Tinsel Teeth or Railroad Tracks or whatever. You know, all the typical kid stuff. So, growing up, I didn't really have a lot of trust in anybody. It took a lot for people to get me to trust them. And I'm still that way. I'm less trustful now. But getting back to my first marriage, he was very verbally abusive to me. He would put me down all the time. And one night, he wanted to be intimate, and I was not in the mood. So I kept telling him, no, no, no. And he would not quit. So finally, out of anger, I kind of just turned over and I said, fine, just take it, thinking that that would put him off. Well, he took that as an invitation. And to me, I felt like I was raped by him, literally, because it wasn't pleasant. It hurt for a long time. And I ended up getting divorced from him because of all the verbal abuse and a lot of fighting and stuff. And then I went years without being married to anybody. Got away from him, moved to Illinois. And that guy ended up being controlling. Call him Psycho Dude. I won't use his real name. But while I was living with that guy, then I met my second ex-husband, now ex-husband. And I wasn't really interested in him. He wasn't exactly a GQ model, although he was pretty caring at the beginning. But after I got married to him, he became very verbally abusive. And his abuse turned into physical. Not only with me, but also with Sea-Dog. He grabbed Sea-Dog one time over a story I won't get into here, but I got in between them. And I told him, you get your hands off my son. And he finally let go. I felt a little bit empowered, terrified out of my mind, because that guy is 6 feet tall, and I'm 5'5". So I was a little bit scared, but I realized Sea-Dog has always had my back, but then I had his back, and I wasn't going to let him hit my second ex-husband. And so, because he was getting ready to, and so I stepped in between, protected my son, became Mama Bear. And so I ended up divorcing him when he grabbed my wrist in anger one night and sprained my wrist. So I said, nope, I am not going to be Nicole Brown Simpson. So I left. I divorced him. Best thing that ever happened. And so then I moved back to Minnesota. Back into the memories. Back into being around this person that was my abuser. And still putting up with his verbal abuse. Getting screamed at now and again. So then I just kind of took it. I was a doormat to everybody growing up. So getting to this past Saturday, or 2 Saturdays ago, I went to visit this person with Sea-Dog. And I was looking through some pictures. And he saw what I was doing, and he screamed at me from across the room. Don't touch my stuff, he says. And of course, I looked up and I'm like, what is your problem? And all I said was, all I'm doing is looking through some pictures, and he screamed at me again. So I said, you know what, I'm done. So I left the room. I left the apartment. And I went downstairs to wait for Sea-Dog. And while I was down there, Sea-Dog said that he was coming down. The abuser was coming down. And so I went outside of his apartment building. He came out. And for 20 minutes, I screamed at him. Told him I wanted nothing to do with him ever again. He would never speak to me like that ever again. And he was confused. He said, I didn't scream at you. Now, I will tell you, he's in his early 90s, and he's been diagnosed with dementia. But backing the train up just a little bit here, growing up, this abuse became a family secret. We were not allowed to talk about it. So I had no mouth. I had no voice. That's notorious with this family. Whatever the word family means, really. So for 52 years, I kept my silence. And for the last several years, I've been told, don't tell him, don't talk about his dementia, because he doesn't want to acknowledge it. He's been told by the doctor and all this stuff, but don't tell him about it. Don't talk about it with him. Well, I threw it up in his face. And I told him he's sick in the head, that he has dementia that he doesn't want to acknowledge. And I said, the fact that you don't even remember screaming at me 15 minutes ago proves that you have dementia. So he told me, what if I came over to your place and started digging through your stuff? I said, I wouldn't care. He said, bullshit, yes you would. I said, oh, now you're telling me how I'm supposed to feel? I mean, the major Irish side of me came out. No one has ever seen me that angry. I was so angry, I was literally shaking. That's how mad I was. Not even my kids have seen me that mad. I've come close to being that mad. They have seen me mad before, breaking dishes. But they've never seen me to that level. And he kept telling me he wasn't screaming at me. He wasn't screaming at me. I said, yes, you were. So he just kept asking me the same questions over and over again. And I said, I'm done. I don't want anything to do with you. I'm not going to be talking to you like that from you ever again. And I felt very empowered. It was kind of like that line from Newsies. This would be a good time to shut up. For years, I was the one that cowered to him because he had power over me. This time, I took the power away from him. And he didn't know what to do. He's like, I don't understand what's going on. And he said that several times. So he goes, I don't think we're getting anywhere. I said, you know what? You're right. We're not. And I said, what do you want from me? He said, nothing. And I said, okay, fine. Then this conversation is over. And I turned around and walked away, and I glanced back and saw that he was walking back into the building. Since then, I have talked to his wife, tried to talk to his wife, and all she said was, you know, she didn't seem like she was herself. And I said, is everything okay? She said, no, you need to talk to him, and bye. And she hung up. So now she won't even talk to me. So how does this make me feel? I feel like the designated asshole. That's how I feel. Like I had no right to speak my mind. Like I was just supposed to be the sweet little girl that I've always been and keep my mouth shut and don't say anything. Well, you know what? I am done being told what to say, how to live my life, what to do. So I'm standing up for myself for a change. Here's where I don't need the applause, although it is appreciated if you are. I've got other family members that know about this. Some of them, like my children, said that they're proud of me for standing up to him the way I did. One other person is trying to get me to see it through his wife's eyes, you know, how this affects her. So I was sitting in bed this morning thinking that statement over and over in my head, thinking, should I feel guilty about this because of how it's affecting her? In a way, I kind of do, because she has to live with it. But in a way, I'm like, how about how it has affected me my entire life? She's the one that's married to a child molester and a verbal abuser, and she's putting up with it every day. I'd like to get him away from her because she doesn't deserve that. But I'm being told it's more complicated than that. But when I've delved into it saying how so, I was told I don't want to get into it. Okay. So I have nobody except for my kids. So I'm going to just keep living my life. I'm not going to be concerned about what other people think of me anymore. And if you don't like me, oh well, that's your loss. If a lot of you decide to unsubscribe from me because of this, no skin off my nose. I just do this for a hobby, for fun. I mean, for many years I've been thinking about hanging it up because I'm starting to run out of ideas and I'm not getting a lot of views anymore. Anyway, except when I talk politics. But that is my story. And I'm still sitting here wondering if I should mention this man's name. I will tell you, he is in my Who Am I videos. I have mentioned him. I've shown him showing you his picture. You can probably deduce now who it might be because most of the pictures I've shown you, those people have all passed away. But this family is notorious for keeping secrets, and I am done keeping secrets. And in order for me to talk to his wife, I almost feel like I have to apologize. Number one, for what I said, and number two, how I said it. And by doing that, it's like I was in the wrong. Like I'm not sorry for all the abuse I took. And putting up with his shit for so many years. Why should I apologize for that? My only fault, in my opinion, is that I was born. And starting in junior high, the abuse weighed so heavy on my shoulders that from junior high all the way to when I was married the second time, I have tried many different times to take my own life. Actually, even after that, because there was one time after I got back from California, a trip to California in 2012, I think it was, where I came back home. It was around, no, let's see, it was after Sea Dog and Silver Star and I went out to California in 2015, actually. Because we went out there at the end of November and came back like December 3rd or something like that. And wintertime is always a very hard time for me because I've been diagnosed with SAD, which is seasonal depression. I've been in lockup. I've been force-fed medication, and it screws up my system. Won't do that again. So that's why I always say a silent depressive is not a good thing. Because people that are depressed and are thinking of suicide and talk about it, those are the people that are seeking help. And the worst thing you can do to somebody like that is to make suggestions for them and toss them to the wolves. They need people around them that know them very well to be a shoulder to cry on. They don't need your advice. And I can speak that from my perspective. I don't need people telling me to get a light wall or to take vitamin D or to go on medication or to see a counselor. Most of them I've already done. It doesn't help. It's only a Band-Aid. The Band-Aid isn't what heals the cut. It just covers it up to prevent it from getting worse. It doesn't cure it. That is including medication like Prozac and Paxil and Lexapro. Those 3 I've been on. And it takes a good 2 to 3 weeks for my body to get used to it, to not shake like I'm having a convulsion, literally, for me not to shake. And yeah, it makes you happy, but it doesn't take away the problem. The problems are still up there. And talking about it doesn't get rid of the memories either. It gives you ideas of what to do to cope with it, but it doesn't get rid of them. Only a lobotomy can do that. So yeah, I've been down that road. Am I there right now? No. Have I been recently? In recent months? Yes, I have been. But since last Saturday, do I feel like taking my life? No, I don't. Will I possibly in the near future? Maybe. I don't predict the future. But as Dr. Phil would often tell his guests, not even God can change what has happened. The words are out there. The anger was out there. And it still is out there. And I don't plan on ever seeing this man ever again. And one of the last things he said to me is, I'm going to die. And when I'm dead, then you can come and see me. And all I said was, okay. Do I regret what I said to him? No. Do I regret how I said it to him? Absolutely not. He needed to hear it. Do I feel relief? Yes. Are the memories still there? Yes. They will be until the day I die, unless I get dementia. See, he has the luxury of forgetting these things because of his diagnosis. I don't. And the fact that his wife won't even sit there and listen to my side of the story, I have no idea what he said to her. If he said anything. I presume he did because she's telling me to talk to him. But it sounds like she wants nothing to do with me now. So now the advice I'm getting from people is that I should just kind of let things calm down a little bit, and maybe time will turn things around between me and her. I don't know. I'm not mad at her. The only thing I'm mad at her about is breaking a promise to me years ago by staying with him. And that's not the only secret I have about him. Not quite ready to reveal that one yet. Not even the 3 people I grew up with know what I know. At least according to him. Unless he's told them since then, I don't know. But he has a problem. And I'm not going to be a part of that problem anymore. I was the solution by throwing it all up in his face. And for once, I had the power. And it felt good to get that all off my chest. So, that's my story. I'm finally getting it out there to all of you. And like I said, you know, when this whole Me Too movement was going on, I mean, I watched recently, like within a couple weeks or so, I watched an interview, a very long interview, from Rose McGowan. And she wasn't the first one to come out about the abuse by Harvey Weinstein, but she was the main person that started the Me Too movement. I also watched 2 documentaries from Demi Lovato. The first one was called Dancing with the Devil. It's here on YouTube, where it talks about her drug overdose and how she literally died and was brought back to life, and how her father's drug and alcohol abuse affected her life. And then I watched one that had been done prior to her her drug overdose in 2018. This one was put out in 2017, and it was called Simply Complicated. And it talks about her, you know, like the Jonas Brothers were part of that because she was in Camp Rock and everything. And how she became close to the Jonas Brothers. And even they spoke out saying, you know, they saw that she was starting to have a problem with drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. And nobody could really help her. She had to help herself. And that's true of pretty much anyone with an addiction. Even Matthew Perry spoke about it. You know, he had been to 16 rehabs. And even on the Dr. Phil show, when he would send people to these dual diagnosis centers and drug treatment centers, even he has admitted, and this is something I really don't understand about these drug programs. You go into these rehabs to get clean off of these pills and alcohol, but they keep them readily available. Is that a psychological thing that, okay, we're gonna detox you, and then you're gonna be around all these drugs, and we're gonna teach you not to try to continue along that path? To me, that doesn't make any sense. You would think taking them away from the person would be more. Yeah, it's Memorial Day, so there's a lot of planes going on outside. I guess they're flying the planes today. You would think that taking the drugs away would be more empowering to those people, not making them readily available or around these people. Yet these people spend thousands of dollars on these drug rehab places only to be thrown into a den full of drugs. That doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe because I've never done drugs. There's something else you don't know about me. I've never drank. I've never done drugs. I've never smoked. Never have, never will. Now, yes, I grew up Catholic. Yes, they did serve wine. But all I would do is take the cup and let the liquid touch my lips. I never actually swallowed any. And yes, Sea-Dog has joked with me about this. I do take a shot of NyQuil every freaking night just to put me to sleep. Never have I ever been drunk, Sea-Dog. Never have I ever been arrested, especially for DUI. I've never done hard drugs. Yes, I take over-the-counter medications. Yes, I take prescription medications. Yes, I have been prescribed opioids. But I may only take like 1 or 2 because I've seen how addictive they can be. And it scares me to take them. So I'd rather live with the pain than have to be having these drugs in my house. I mean, granted, I could have not filled the prescription. So that was money thrown down the drain, I guess, because I would get them prescribed and I'd fill it, and then the pills would sit in my cupboard until they expired, and then I'd bring them to the local pharmacy where I could dispose of them properly. But never have I ever been addicted to drugs or alcohol. I was tempted to smoke one time when I was going to Brown Institute for TV, radio, broadcasting, when a friend of mine smoked, and she had to run back in the building, and it was a no-smoking building, so she had me hold her lit cigarette. And so I was holding her cigarette out on the street by myself, waiting for her to come back out. I was tempted to take a puff, and I'm like, nope, I'm not doing that. So, but as I see my battery is now flashing, I'm going to let you guys go. But thank you for joining me today. Leave your comments below, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Have a sunny day.